なりおしまい。
Welcome back, Dragon Ballers, to Get the Mic, the only show where your hosts on the left, Owl,
and your host on the right, Brock,
dissect fiction for its mythological significance. On this episode, we're talking about Dragon Ball, as usual, in particular Dragon Ball episode 79, which is called Terror and Plague. What is the Japanese title, do you know, Brock?
Let me see. Got it right here.
Anyways, before we get started, please give us a like and subscribe if you enjoy the show. We upload new episodes Mondays and Thursdays on YouTube, Tuesdays and Fridays on Rumble. So please join us on those sites. You can also comment. We'd like to hear if you agree, if you disagree. We just love to interact with our community, and particularly the Dragon Ball community at large. I think we could have a pretty good impact on it as a whole. So, without further ado, I think we can go ahead and get into Terror and Plague, or
I can't find the intro to it.
oh goodness. Let me see.
I see it here.
Oh, I see. Yes. It doesn't show it. All right. So
My player just keeps lagging every time.
That's okay.
Goku and Minaku's man-eating gourd.
Ah, yes, the man-eating gourd. That's what I was looking for. So, as you guys can tell, there will be a gourd in this episode. Ooh, get ready for it. So the first thing we see, and we're going to go ahead and get into the episode, is a desolate landscape wrecked with drought. And Goku, who it is revealed has been traveling along, training at the behest of Roshi, he runs until he is too hungry to go on. And as soon as he is too tired to go on, he hears a girl's voice crying out. And Goku finds that the girl is asking a cat monster to come back to her village to help her, but the monster only grabs the girl, ready to eat her. Goku saves her, dispatching the cat monster, and the two head off toward the village. So this, starting off, we can see that Goku has adopted that path that we were talking about, opening himself up to the problems of the world, right? And so here, particularly, he would not have discovered this, for example, if he was on the Nimbus.
Right. So the first thing that we see is something very localized on an individual basis, right? And it's sort of a retelling of what we ran into very early in the series. So we're sort of a lot of times we have these filler sequences, episodes. They're reestablishing sort of the ideas that were already there behind the earlier arcs. So we see the cat bandit type character on the road who is essentially give me that turtle and I'll let you pass type sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Hmm.
And so Goku has to rectify this for the other, right, out in the world that he had to stumble upon with his own 2 feet.
And we all also can see here the spirit of that archetypal female is both heroic, and we'll get to that in a second when we get to the village. But she's also trying to hire this creature. She's at such a point of desperation that she wants to hire this creature to fight whatever it is that's plaguing them back at home. Right?
Right.
It's it's inviting that creature in, which we know is an unholy thing to do. So obviously it fails.
Exactly. And it's also sort of like going out into chaos and trying to ask the world for help against something, and this is what the world has put out, and it's sort of dealing with the potential malice out there, and
And the fact that it's red in tooth and claw, right? Because
right.
the cat monster wants to eat her. And but it is again redeemed by Goku, who is able to save the girl. And they head off toward the village because the girl realizes that Goku is strong and maybe he can defeat whatever it is that's blighting them back at the village.
Hmm.
So let's go ahead and move on. That's what we see there, and like we said, we're kind of rehashing that and setting it up. The extra part here that I do want to mention is the desolate landscape we see that's wrecked with drought. It's 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 the next step beyond what we've seen as far as the cat monster on the road and all that stuff. We'll see how that translates, but I think that's important to note.
Right.
So then we see that Chow, I want to call her, I want to actually call her by her name. She has a name. Chow's village. Everyone is gathering up food and keeps talking about when will they be here? When are they coming back, right? And so when the town alarm is sounded, the villagers ask if Chow is back with a hero, but alas, it is the bandits that have been plaguing their village. I tried not to use it, but plaguing is this the best word for it.
Basically, they are terror and plague.
So while the two young heroes race back, the villagers are busy gathering a tribute for these two road warriors that wield a magical gourd. The gourd can swallow a person whole and liquefy them in a soup that will nourish these two bandits. However, only if the gourd is not answered when a person's name is called. Goku and Chow make it back just in time for the roll call, where the two bandits line up the villagers to have their names called, and if any of them don't call out their name or answer when their name is called out, they'll be turned into soup. And so that is when the thugs choose their next victim. Now, about this, Goku has come back to save the village without knowing them. And one thing I do want to mention is that Chow offers Goku money to do it.
Right.
And Goku says no, he's training anyways, so it's a good time to
To do good.
test, let's say, yeah, to do good and let's say test his spirit against the spirits out there in the world that he doesn't know about, right?
Right.
The chaos, he's embracing it openly and without selfish intent. Like that money is rejected.
Right. We have to
And
see him
again,
explicitly not be selfish.
yeah, and again, this is rehashing things that we already know about Goku, but this is kind of an episode, a bottle episode where Goku's spirit must be instantiated to these characters in just a short amount of time because we just met them.
Right.
So there's a couple things I want to talk about. I think I can't tell if this is a wrestling reference or not. They look like the Road Warriors.
Okay, so I'm thinking kayfabe because I think it's intentional to make them have this aspect of themselves, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. They're wrestlers and they're wrestlers. Like
Yeah.
it works on multiple
That's what
levels.
wrestlers are doing, right?
Yes. And these guys aren't I mean, they use the gourd. We haven't actually seen them do anything besides ride around on their bikes, right? So we've seen that so far. But the Mohawk, I don't know. I guess they're not exactly the Road Warriors. They do remind me of the Road Warriors though. And I like the kayfabe reference. Now, what that is for anyone that doesn't know is the idea that wrestlers are playing an act, basically playing a role, right? And when they break that, that's kayfabe. When they break that, they're breaking it. So these guys are playing a role, right? They are the bandits as such, right? They
Right,
terrorize
it's
the
meme
town.
consciousness. Like
Yes,
kayfabe is actually instantiating an idea into the world such that as if it were real,
and
right?
it transcends the idea that it's fake, and that's what wrestling. That's why people watch wrestling
Yeah.
because it does the stories they tell
And that's why they have
transcends the
like
fact that it's
reality
fake.
TV-esque stuff because
Yeah.
they're playing their characters in like social situations with each other and creating drama out of the
And
kayfabe because they
further
have to.
instantiating that spirit,
Yeah.
right? How many times does a spirit need to be instantiated to defeat death? I don't know, but Santa Claus did it. So, uh, we're off track. But
But
anyways,
no, but that's
had to explain kayfabe.
well, so the reason that I think it's kayfabe too is that I think these characters are sort of representing that propensity of the world to create an image out of your name, right? To
Well,
create something out of who you are and like paint a picture of you
and
and have
also
an
think about how
an
they act.
identity attached
Think
to
about how
you.
they act at the end.
Right. Exactly.
This is yeah, definitely kayfabe here.
So yeah, it's and this is their thing. They have their roll call, right? Where it's they're choosing by if they know your name, right? And I feel like they're sort of like the fact that you can be named means that I can manipulate your spirit such that I consume it for my own good, right?
Right. And that is what happens, right, when the the catastrophes of terror and plague, right? Their attention is brought upon
Right.
an individual.
Right.
Is that that
This is part
individual
of
is
that limit
consumed?
story,
Yeah.
let's say, right? This is the self. Everyone has a name, an identity, right?
Yes.
So this is a consequence of identity. This is sort of the propensity of the world to impose upon you your the goodness of your path just based upon the fact that you have to carry an identity with you because you can never be the world. You have to be an individual. So you can't really be a representative of the earth because you're always locked in being just an individual. So it's like you have an identity, you have a name that the world sees you as, right? And you're a singular thing, right? You always will be. And so it's like this spirit, if it has your name, it overcomes you and just consumes you, right?
Well, and not everyone. We'll see how that works. But right,
Right,
the idea that it is the calling out and spelling of one's name, right?
right. Think Rumpelstiltskin, right?
Right. Has and that's a power, that's like a magical thing, right? Has power over that individual. And the idea that terror and plague, and I don't know if it's an exact translation, but the idea that and if it is, I think it works. Um, because the idea that terror and plague, right? Let's say the idea that you will get sick and die and fear itself, right? When those two ideas call out your name, a lot of people are overwhelmed by that
Right.
and they are subsumed and liquefied.
But there's also that unfairness, right? Because terror and plague comes for those before that don't even have an identity yet, right? That's the
And
aspect
that's
of
what we're going to
nature,
get.
right?
Well, that's what we're going to get to with the baby.
Exactly. So that's why they choose the baby, and that's the unfairness that Goku's here to try to rectify. That he's still in that path of defeating death. He's trying to act it out and instantiate that to happen. And so we get to see it symbolically happen and stack up and sort of give you a little telling of that thematic element of his character here in this, right? Where
Exactly, yeah.
he's doing that. He's
Oh,
redeeming the fact that nature comes for the innocent.
and I also want to mention the bandits are upset about the bounty that was given to them. And they're upset because last time they came for their tribute, it was double what they got this time, or this time was half. Either way you want to look at it.
Right.
Um, and so, but we've known from the beginning of the episode, right, that it's a desolate landscape right now, and there's a drought going on, and they say there's a drought going on, but the bandits don't care. It's the idea. It's that same idea of Scar. When Scar tells the lionesses to go hunt the food, hunt like wildebeest and stuff, and they're like, all the food's gone. the ethic by which you've ruled your kingdom has made it such that there's no food. So he says, "Well,
There's
that's
no
not my
sustenance
problem. Go
here,
find the
right?
food." And so it's one of those things that terror and plague aren't conscious of the idea that they've caused this situation. And so they blame it on them. They're like, "Give us your food then." Right? They're also very consumer oriented. They consume all that food, right? And that is to say that they take what nourishes people away from them, right? And so the last thing I think we'll mention here is that baby. I want to get back to the baby because that's what causes Goku to then rise and challenge them. But I wanted to say about the baby is that Goku's ability to give back the baby's ability to be named without deadly recourse instantly, right? Because that's kind of the Sleeping Beauty thing almost, right?
Hmm.
Aurora being christened.
Well, that I was going to say baptism, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's
taking back the that sanctity of the name,
and so Goku is able to make it so this baby can be named without bearing the terror and plagues of the world.
right? And so you do that symbolically to represent sort of the sacrifice made in the Christ mythos, right?
Yes. And so that is a yeah, I would say it's a reenactment along the same lines of what we're seeing happen here with
So it's
this
funny that
baby.
they frame it this way, right? Where you have the the manifestations of terror and plague coming, and Goku acting out a little Christ mythos snippet here, right?
Yeah, just right after too. Right after the last episode. It wasn't planned. So, Goku, hearing enough of the deeds of terror and plague, openly challenges the two brigands. They fight, and Goku easily overcomes them. I will say that I think it's terror. I don't know which one is which. Do you?
No,
I can't remember either. It's the smaller one attacks Goku first, trying to name him, right? And he doesn't have his name in the book, right? In other words, the Goku's name does not appear in the book of names owned by Terror and Plague. Goku's name, his identity, isn't owned by those two things, right? And so,
but I thought it does work on him, right?
no,
And
no,
then he
yeah,
gets
yeah.
drank.
I'm saying in the book,
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
it'll still work on him, yeah. And he actually tells them his name here. He's like, "My name's Goku," right? He's not afraid to
Oh, that's right.
expose himself to it. Yeah, that's what I
To
was getting.
expose himself.
That's what
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
getting
yeah,
at. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Expose. Well, he's not afraid of that either. We'll get to that.
yeah,
And so he tries to fight him, and then the big guy tries to fight him. And though the big guy puts up a better fight by drinking and eating more, and remember, drinking that sake from the gourd is actually the essence of other people. And that is to say, the power of him grows when he's able to do that. He actually puts up somewhat of a fight against Goku, but then is also defeated. The two brothers, though, they use the gourd. Oh, they're brothers also. I forgot to mention that. The two brothers use the gourd and seemingly trap Goku inside, just as Goku is about to land the finishing blow. So there's where it
right,
works. And it's to say that it does overwhelm Goku, but Goku is able to stop it. He's able to catch himself with a power pole and not be liquefied by the gourd's magic.
right,
And that's also to say that he has been able to, well, by using the power pole, right? He's been able to save himself using the idea of that ancestral spirit in the way of his gift from Grandpa Gohan. And that actually is able to support someone, right? That idea of the ancestral lineage being able to survive across time is enough to support Goku here in the gourd when confronted with the ideas of terror and plague.
right. And it's funny that like there's that idea of revealing yourself being tied into the gourd, right? And so we have Goku down here essentially trapped on a tightrope of it's kind of like a tightrope in the way that it's set up, right? Balancing atop the the way almost. It's like the way that you've learned from what your father has handed down to you, right? And he once again is sort of in that position that's like, can you defeat death? Like he's been defeated, right? He's been consumed by the belly of the whale, right?
Right. He is in that. Yeah.
But see, this is the thing is it's like he has to go and be of the world here, and so he plays out being consumed, and then also has to play out saving himself, right?
Right. Because that is the terror that they have been these people have been undergoing, right? He has to experience that suffering. He has to uh partake in that almost sacrifice. And so,
To make it universal,
right, to be that self, right? To
right?
have experienced that, right? There are other characters that people really enjoy, like Vegeta and Piccolo would never allow themselves to be trapped like this, let's say,
Right.
right? They wouldn't reveal their name, but that's a different story. Just to give an example, right? But Goku does because that's who Goku is. That's the ethic by which he lives. And so that revelation allows him to integrate further, and he keeps integrating here in these next few episodes, just dialing in that integration to get ready for the Budokai, which is about the strongest and most integrated fighters that exist, let's say.
Exactly, and that's what the whole first Budokai tournament was about establishing, right? Showing that that's what that was representative of.
And so now we actually get to see, and that's what I like too. It was that, and now we get to see an expansion. What happens next? Now, and that's what's so great about this show is because it's kind of South Parkian if you want to go about it, because the way South Park is written is this happens and then what? No, this happens, therefore this happens. Therefore this happens. Therefore this happens. And that's how Dragon Ball is, right? It's
Right.
like everything is a consequence of what's happened before. And it echoes back time and time again. And here we see Goku trying to adopt that integration and experience. So it seems like the bad guys have won. The duo has terrorized the town for a long while, well into the evening. Just as Terra decides to open up the gourd to drink Goku, saying that he's been dissolved by now. However, Goku springs forth from the gourd and quickly secures it from the two evil doers. He calls their names, trapping them within the gourd. The bandits beg to escape, promising to be good, and just as the threat of the terror and plague is lifted, the rains come, and they make the village prosperous again, and things start growing again. And the next day, Goku says goodbye to the village, never to see it or mention it again. So this last part is also important.
Right.
So we see that both Terror and Plague are drunk, right? They've enjoyed terrorizing the town, making them do all this stuff. And Goku is not dissolved to their surprise, right? Because it's not, what do I want to say? It's not expected for people to be able to integrate these ideas in such a short amount of time, and Goku can do that easily. That's kind of part of Goku's power. And so he comes out and he calls their names. This is where he has power over them now because he's identified them. He understands their spirit, their mode of being, right? And now he is a master of them instead of the other way
Right.
around.
He's allowed them to consume him. So he knows them fully, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so he knows their name
Oh, I also want to mention he
symbolically.
starts peeing while he's in the gourd.
Right. So that revealing of himself is it's sort of like he tries the Kamehameha and it doesn't work. Um, but then
And why is that? Because the truth of terror and plague, acknowledging the truth of that doesn't get rid
it
of
doesn't
it.
get rid of it.
Terror and plague still exist, right?
So confronting it truthfully and speaking its nature to the world, right? And acknowledging it accurately doesn't sufficiently deal with it. So then Goku is compelled to reveal himself because of that. It's almost like whenever Goku is in situations where honesty is not something that can overcome the situation, it's almost like it reveals him. Like he feels like he needs to
well
reveal himself
the
as he is rather
and
than what he can project out.
I think part of that is because that is so integral to Goku's identity that the only way that he can see forward if the Kamehameha way doesn't work is to open himself up to a new
Yeah,
possibility.
it's like seeing with his body instead of just his eyes, right? He's
Yeah.
uncovering himself to the world so that he can fully experience it in a sense. And so then
No
there's that
kidding.
compulsion to pee at moments like that all throughout the series so far. Um, and so it's that one shot is so hilarious where they're shaking the bottle and it's just whipping back and forth.
The stream that is.
Hmm.
So so it makes it even better because once Goku has command over them by identifying them and calling their names, they go into the gourd and fall into the piss.
Right.
Into Goku's piss. They say, "Please let us out. We're scared and it smells like pee." Pretty good. And so Goku does let them out. It's revealed later. And when they are let out, now that they've been adequately addressed, um, and that's what it has to be. That chaos that creeps up upon civilization, right, has to be dealt with on a regular basis. It's almost like the controlled burning of a forest. And if it isn't, then it can get out of control, which is what happened here. And so now that Terror and Plague are out, they are kind of serving the community, let's say. And it's revealed that they're without the gourd, they're not exactly what they used to
Well,
be.
to put them into the gourd is to put them into a sense of self retrospection, right?
Hmm.
It's see Goku went into the gourd, right? Like he got consumed by them and he understood them. But that's the effect that they had on people. So they had the experience of themselves, right? So it's like they reflected upon themselves and learned about what it would be like to be anybody else that they had, put through this experience
Well, I don't know
so
if
that
I
they could be reformed and
no, see, I
respect their
don't think they're
position.
reformed though. That's the thing. I think they're kind of controlled because the village Goku gives the gourd to the village elder, who
Right.
then can call their names, right? As long as he's able to pay attention to them and call their names and keep them in check, they're prosperous to the community. And what happens when the people in the community are acknowledging those two things is that it builds a prosperous community. Not it literally doesn't like grow things, but that ability makes strong people.
I see. Having it integrated into your community is something that will help it prosper, and it needs to be kept in check, right?
Yes, yes.
And so yeah, that's what I mean by they've been like
I guess they've
reformed
been reformed.
as
Not they aren't like, well, I want to
they're
be
not
good now.
morally good,
Right? Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah. I see what you're saying.
they're useful now. They're not destructive.
Yes, and that's another little part of Goku's logos orientation that allows him to turn those things into useful things,
Right.
chaos into order, which defeating the dragon, getting the gold, giving it back to the kingdom. That.
Specifically. Yeah.
And so that's what's happened here. The rains come, right? He also brings the rains. That's like when Simba roars at the end of the Lion King, and the rains come back, and all the food and plant life comes back after Scar ruined everything. Right? It's that same idea that the hero can then re-nourish the land, and it can become prosperous again. So, I think that's a good spot to leave off. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I think it's a nice little bottle episode.
Yeah, it's one of the good. It's one of the
It's
best
a
ones.
good
I
gourd
think. Yeah,
episode.
definitely. Good, great gourd. Gourd out of 10. Gourd out of 10.
Yeah, gourd out of 10.
All right. So if you guys like what you heard, please like and subscribe. We have new episodes Mondays and Thursdays on YouTube, Tuesdays and Fridays on Rumble. Give us a subscribe. Please comment. We'd love to hear what you have to say. This was Get the Mic, episode 79. I'm your host on the left, Owl,
I'm your host on the right, Brock.
and we hope you guys have a good night.
Success was like a demon in my head. How could he be a Super Saiyan when I, the Prince of all Saiyans, could not? skies of the planet I was on. I welcomed it. Like it was an outward manifestation